Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Did a lot of conversation around this Michigan program over the last 7 days, really since that loss at home against Texas. And a lot of the conversation, I think, according to the national media, immediately goes to the quarterback position, which I think we both agree absolutely needs to get better if Michigan wants to compete at a high level in the Big Ten. That being said, I do think a lot of Michigan fans who follow this program relatively closely, who've gone back and rewatched that Texas game multiple times, till like quite frankly, we have over the last couple of days, you kind of understand that yes, the quarterback problem or quarterback position is not good enough. It needs to get better. That being said, a lot of aspects of this team around the quarterback also need to take a step in the right direction throughout the rest of 2024 for Michigan to start competing at that level we expect. Want to get into at least a few names that we would like to see a little bit more of, specifically against Arkansas State, heading into that week 4 matchup against USC. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Michigan fans, look, it's a long list of aspects of this team that we want to see get better throughout the year. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. The amount of support from the Michigan fans it's been amazing. We appreciate you guys. Let it fly in the comment section if y'all do enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, before we get into the players, I think the good news for Michigan fans, if you're going to allow me to be a sunshine pumper just for 30 seconds here, is that this Michigan team is very new. And so there's reason to believe that a lot of these guys who are getting their first and second and now going into their third career starts get better as they get more playing time and experience under their belt. There's some other programs across the country that you just look at and say, hey, you ain't that good of a team. Better luck in 2025. I'm not there for Michigan yet in 2024 because a lot of these guys are new faces that I think are going to get better as they continue to get experience. So that's the good news for Michigan. I want to start with the guy that, quite frankly, has been within this Michigan program going on year 4, a guy that I think we were all really excited about heading into the season, but we also had significant conversation around, is he going to be the bell cow back? And that's Donovan Edwards. You look at Donovan Edwards' numbers, 19 carries, 3.6 yards per carry, only one missed tackle forced on the season. Then you compare that to Kalel Mullings, who has 21 carries, has averaged 5.5 yards per carry, has forced 8 missed tackles on the season. There's two aspects that I look at Donovan Edwards. One, I think as a player, just we got to see more of him, a little bit more consistent, especially working between the tackles. But I think the more important conversation is we got to use Donovan Edwards a little bit more effectively. You're looking at a running back that might be the best pass catching running back that we see in the country. He has 3 catches on the season. Get him in different formations, get him working out of the backfield, get him working in the slot, try to find some matchups where Donovan Edwards can give this Michigan team that explosiveness. That's kind of what more I'm looking for with a guy like Donovan Edwards.
In the frustrating part about the usage, and you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, the play needs to be better. And when he's got his shots to make things happen, like he did in that Texas game when he was one-on-one with the safety, you'd like to see him make that play.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's probably the most explosive player Michigan has on the offense side of the ball. But I also think you're right to say, like, the coaching staff needs to pick it up a little bit and get creative. I mean, you saw how Steve Sarkisian was using his running backs against Michigan, how much space he was able to generate for those guys who are not really in between the tackles running backs. I mean, Jaden Blue is much more closer to what Donovan Edwards' skill set is than what Kalel Mullings is maybe. And they're just not getting Donovan Edwards into those positions. And they've tried. They've gone to that swing pass a couple times, but there's no creativity on it. There's no misdirection. There's nothing to really get him in space. Guys are flying out to him, and it feels a little bit obvious when they're going to it. And again, I'm not an offensive coordinator, but the way Sarkisian draws things up and how he gets his running backs cracks of daylight to make things happen, somehow Michigan needs to do that with Edwards because he is probably the only guy who I think can consistently be relied upon to hit big plays if he gets the chance to do it.
Yeah, I think and we talk about this all the time. Like, what's the sign of an elite football coach is a coach that can put his players in ideal positions that kind of suit their physical skill set. Donovan Edwards is not a consistent between the tackles running back. You're like, yes, Donovan Edwards can do it. Is that where he's at its best? No, that's kind of where we've seen Donovan Edwards get most of his work. Like, Kalel Mullings is much more suited to run that kind of offense or that kind of scheme for this Michigan team. So when you want to go between the tackles, Kalel Mullings, or even a guy like Benjamin Hall, who we saw some good things from in that Texas game. Maybe that they can get utilized there. And then you're using Donovan Edwards as a little bit more of a spacey back that can give you some of those big plays, especially in space. That's kind of where I'm coming in with Donovan Edwards. Yes, he's got to play better. Would like to see him get used better. Now, another player that, Dill, we were awfully excited about in terms of what we read from fall camp, wide receiver one, Tyler Morris, 5 catches for 32 yards on 9 targets. A couple of things that you want to see more from Tyler Morris. One, more consistent separation in his route tree. Like, it just, whenever even Tyler Morris is getting targets, there's not a lot of separation that's getting created by Tyler Morris. But I think much more importantly, our biggest knock on this Michigan offense right now is when we are dropping back and pushing the ball down the field. One, where we ain't really pushing the ball down the field, but more importantly, it's very one-dimensional in terms of just going to Colston Loveland. We need more guys on the outside to step up. And I know we can get into this conversation right now. You want to see Jaden Davis, the true freshman. I know a lot of Michigan fans. I'm on the message boards. I know a lot of Michigan fans want to see Jaden Davis get a crack. Look, I'm not anti playing true freshman. I was banging on the table for J.J. McCarthy to play back in 2021 as a true freshman. That being said, I got to see some stuff out of guys like Tyler Morris or more out of Samaj Morgan before I just want to throw a freshman into the fire behind an offensive line that we're going to get to has certainly struggled. And then playmakers that outside of Colston Loveland have largely been non-existent.
And I don't have a ton to add, frankly, because I think everyone who's watched Michigan so far has been really, really kind of annoyed, frankly, for lack of better terms, of their inability to get explosive at all. And you obviously, everything's working through Colston Loveland. He's the only guy who's really feels like he's open and can be relied upon to make plays. So at the end of the day, there's not much to add for Tyler Morris aside from, something's got to change. He has to play better. I mean, even when he's gotten his chances to make plays that Fresno State game, that ball, he probably should have caught for a touchdown. I mean, that's there. I don't know. He kind of gave up on his route, whatever happened, but that's inexcusable. I mean, those are the type of things you need your number one wide receiver to make happen. And
you're the president, I'll say this, of the Jaden Davis fan club here coming into week 3 against Arkansas State. Do you not feel like we need to see more from guys like Tyler Morris before I want to just throw Jaden Davis again into the fire? Like, you go back to the conversation we had with J.J. McCarthy in 2021, it was the best offensive line in the Big Ten. You had some guys on the outside that could make plays, and obviously J.J. McCarthy was certainly ready as a true freshman. From what it sounds like, Jaden Davis has been really good in practice. My only pushback on just throwing Jaden Davis into this Michigan offense is this an ideal fertile ground, a fertile offense right now for a true freshman and Jaden Davis to be successful? I'd probably argue no.
I mean, I'll be kind of honest. I'm not one to absolve the quarterback play. Yeah, I don't
100%, think me neither.
We've seen enough from Tyler Morris, but I'm also not sure we've seen him really get a shot to make things happen, because at the end of the day, I think what you're getting is unbelievably timid quarterback play, unbelievably scared quarterback play, and a quarterback who, frankly, when he's had his guys down the field to make things happen, has not really done it. So at the end of the day, I think you just need a spark. You need something, even like what Florida's got with DJ Lagway. I don't even know if necessarily think Graham Mertz is playing bad football, but they need something on this offensive side of the ball to create some confidence, create a spark. I don't even know if that's like the right thing to do. It's just at some point something's got to give. And you can obviously see I'm almost like getting my words a little stumbled upon, because I think I'm at a loss of them at this point. With this offense, I just think it's been so pathetic, so anemic. Something's got to give. I'm perfectly comfortable letting Jaden Davis go out there and at least try to make something happen, because at this point, I think we've seen 2 games where we've been really way too scared.
Do you think it would like stunt? And I'm not necessarily the one to make this argument of like, hey, let the freshman.
I know is it going to stunt his development? I'll go with the Kobe Bryant mentality. If you're going to be good, you're going to be good. You can't. It's not going to be like everything needs to line up perfect, and then maybe you can make it happen. If he's going to make it happen, he's going to make it happen. I think that's one of the big things about quarterback play that, frankly, Michigan fans have overlooked at times, I think, with J.J. McCarthy, is how he did elevate everyone around him. When he needed to make plays, it's not like he had to make them all the time. He made them. Caden McNamara, polar opposite of that.
You're selling me. I will say you're selling me a little bit.
Polar opposite of that in this case, too. So Something's got to change. I'm perfectly comfortable going Jaden Davis.
Jaden Davis comp to Kobe Bryant. I can kind of dig that. I would love to hear from the Michigan fans in the comments because I know it's a very polarizing conversation. So y'all let it fly in the comment section. Dill, we don't necessarily agree. I can promise you this though. Jaden Davis trots out Saturday afternoon. I'm gonna be fired up. I'm gonna be fired up. I will say that. Let's get to the last player on offense that we want to see a little bit more from. That's Evan Link, a guy that Dill, we were super fired up when this kid committed to Michigan out of high school. Long, functional athlete that obviously needed a little bit more physical maturation to his game. And then to hear out of fall camp that he was beating out guys like Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy for that right tackle spot, I think it kind of fired us up a little bit. That being said, the first two games, and you got to cut the redshirt freshman some slack because I think those edge rushers that he saw are going to be some of the best in the country, guys like Trey Moore and Colin Simmons. That being said, you take a look at the numbers: 65 pass for opportunities, 12 quarterback hurries. PFF graded him out as a 0. Again, I don't even know how you come up to that grade, but PFF with their numbers, that's what they're doing. It obviously wasn't good. I wouldn't just put it on Evan Link. I think it's on the whole offensive line. Like, this is clearly an offensive line that is not what we expected it to be kind of coming into the season. My one piece of optimism here is, again, Evan Link. He's going to make his third career start if he does start at right tackle Saturday afternoon. You can say a lot of the same things for a lot of other guys. Dominic Gadice at center. I think this unit can get better because I think the personnel is good. Now it's just about gelling as a unit. You have a game against Arkansas State to continue to work on some of that stuff, but you better be ready to rock and roll because if Michigan is beating USC week 4 at home, it's going to be because we can control the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and Evan Link's not one of the guys I'm particularly worried about. Again, you kind of said it. I mean, he is a younger player at the end of the day. And physically, he does look the part. I think he did put the weight on he needs to put on. He still looks athletic enough. To me, he doesn't look particularly comfortable out there. It seemed like, especially with Colin Simmons, that athleticism, like he was getting himself into position, but didn't necessarily, there felt like a lack of calmness, if you will, in what he was doing. I think that is a little bit more, you can develop some of that. So again, certainly needs to play better, but he's not one of the guys I'm looking at like, oh, is he just not a good enough football player? Because I think he's probably got physically what it takes. And again, that isn't the whole football game, but I think he can build on some of that stuff he's got.
So, and I would agree. Like, I'm not selling my stock on Evan Link. If he was able to beat out Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy, like I trust Sherrone Moore in terms of how he evaluates offensive linemen. I trust Sherrone Moore to get this offensive line right. Going over the defensive side of the football again, I think you can look at the scoreboard and say, and not blame the defense, but say the defense didn't have a great outing. And I wouldn't argue that the defense did have a good outing. Like this, you compare this defense to what we saw in 2023, what I would argue is one of the best defenses we've seen in college football in quite a long time. It obviously took a step back. Ernest Hausman, a guy that, again, you're a linebacker playing Coach Sark. It ain't going to be easy. Like, he throws a lot of eye candy, a lot of misdirection. But you do look at Ernest Hausman, 4 missed tackles throughout the first 2 games. Clearly was lost a few times in terms of Coach Sark just kind of confusing him. And then in coverage has not been great. I'm not too worried about Ernest Hausman, but he was kind of one of the guys. He's wearing the green dot for Michigan. Like he's like the captain, the leader of this Michigan defense. You do want to see a little bit more from the third year in college football, second year on Michigan, right here at the linebacker
Yeah,
spot.
and he does have to pick it up. I mean, his ability to play and get to his spots in zone coverage and be where he's supposed to be, that felt like a little bit of a problem last year. It doesn't seem like it's totally been resolved. And I also think Jayshon Barham played his best game, frankly, against Texas. So I think that linebacker unit as a whole,
Yeah.
it didn't look great in that football game. And certainly Texas is a team that if you're not on your P's and Q's at that linebacker spot, they can certainly beat you up a little bit. But I also think at the end of the day, there is a level of how perfect almost our linebackers played last year. And Mike Barrett's a guy who, again, I feel like I was so wrong about in terms of
Oh, yeah. We missed.
2022 season. I was like, oh, give me Ernest House, and we need a higher ceiling. And then Mike Barrett and Junior Colson just played absolute nails all season. They never made mistakes. They made all their tackles. It just like they played almost perfect linebacker football. I just think, again, Ernest Hausman's got to get closer to that. He is making too many mistakes at the end of the day. He's a good enough athlete. He's a good enough player. We just got to see him be more.
Yeah, and especially with Ernest Hausman, where it's like he was supposed to be that reliable off-ball backer that would let Jayshon Barham be the freak show that we know Jayshon Barham can be. He's got to be better at that role. Last position, and so you say, oh, who needs to step up? They haven't really played, but we're going to add it because, dude, this is an insane stat when we were kind of getting ready for this episode. So Mason Graham and Kenneth Graham both have played over 100 snaps of football during the first 2 weeks of the season. Rayshon Benny's at 56. So it's been largely a three-man rotation. Because you look at Trey Pierce and Eno Etta, and Ike.
Boston
They,
guy.
they, they've played the most they've played out of those three is 10 snaps, which is like you talk about the depth and why that made Michigan's defensive line so dominant. They haven't played, so we don't really know what they can do. But it's become very clear that the coaching staff has
But
not
that's
seen
the
enough.
problem. That's
Yeah,
that's why you'd like to see them step up, because you can't have them playing as much as we are playing
can't.
Mason Grant and Kenny Grant. If we're going to get the best out of them, they need to not be on the field pretty much every snap. And that's where you want, Trey Pierce. Rayshon Benny's playing good football. So I'm
Yes,
not
he is.
saying that he's playing really, really good, but you need those other two. They feel, and Ike Awuna, frankly, he looks like he might be the next guy up. So it's,
Yeah.
again, you want to see, Etta's such a talented player. You would like to see him get his hands onto some football or get his fingerprints, let's say, onto some football games a little more consistently.
Yeah, you want to get the best out of Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. You want them to dominate like they dominated in 2023. They can't play 60 snaps a game. And so that it's the young interior defensive linemen, the Enos, the Trey Pierces, to step up. And I'm not saying they got to play 30 snaps in a football game. Like, I think you can mostly make it through with Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, and Rayshon Benny.
You're going to be able to give you 10 to 15.
But you have to get 10 to 15. I would
Especially if
kind of agree
our
with you.
offense isn't going to be able to stay on the field. That's another probably other aspect of
Well,
this.
that needs to change, or else we're not talking about Michigan being a Big Ten championship contender. Like that's just what it is. Rebound game against Arkansas State. You know what I mean? This can be a game where I think Michigan can get back some of that confidence, and then you have USC at home. Like that's a game where we're going to figure out which direction this Michigan season is going to be going. We'll sign out there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Would love to hear from y'all in the comment section. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.